Well, welcome back to The Pew, everybody. I am your host, John Edwards, and I'm excited to be bringing you another special episode of Just a Guy in the Pew. It's special because we have a special guest in this week, and it's somebody I've been looking forward to having in studio for a very long time. It's a new friend in my life, somebody that I met through Father Malachi, which most of you folks know from other episodes of the show. Her name is Marie Miller. She's going to be our first female guest in the studio. We've had some on via the internet before, but this is our first female guest in studio, and we're super excited to have her. But before I bring Marie up, I really want to tell you a little bit about her. So Marie is a multifaceted artist and speaker who weaves music, humor, and storytelling to convey God's love for us and our opportunity to share that love with others. At 17, Marie was signed by Curb Records, and during her Curb years, she recorded the #1 Christian song, You're Not Alone, and had songs featured in movies and television shows, one of which I think was Dancing with the Stars. We'll get into that, I'm sure. But after much thought and prayer, she left Curb Records to create Little Dreams, her first independent album. The album's title track video premiered on Billboard and was its most popular single, Imaginary Friend, was streamed over 1 million times on iTunes. As a live performer, Marie opened for the Backstreet Boys, the Wallflowers, toured with Five for Fighting, and headlined shows in listening rooms across the country. Marie shared the main stage with Mark Wahlberg and Aretha Franklin to perform for Pope Francis and a live audience of 750,000 people. Yeah, you heard that right, 750,000 people. I don't know how you did that because I would have been freaking out. But anyway, she's an amazing artist. She has a brand new album out called The Way of Love. We're going to cover all of that, dive into her history growing up, her life, her story, and honestly, I'm so excited to get started. So Marie, thank you for joining me on the show.
It's so great to be here, and it's so fun to be on a podcast that I listen to so much. So thanks for having me.
Well, yeah, thank you for listening. I mean, you must have nothing to do with your time. But
No, I love it so much. And I was telling you earlier that my husband listens to you so much. And so it's really cool because we have pretty different interests podcast-wise. Yeah. And so it's really awesome that we have this one that we can listen to together. So it's great.
Well, I appreciate that. And I've enjoyed getting to know you here in town. And just, we've been out to dinner a few times with our spouses and just a budding friendship. So it's so nice when you've got somebody that works in the same space and you're cool. Like, that's the thing too. Like, some people are not cool. We probably shouldn't say that, but we have to love them because Jesus says we have to love them, but not everybody's cool. You're actually cool and fun to hang out with. So it's nice to have you here. I know you've got a new album out and it's beautiful. My kids listen to it constantly. I get caught, blaring out the chorus to it, walking through the house a lot. My wife's downloaded it. And in fact, I've seen, every time I get on Facebook lately, I see a bunch of things that are out there being posted by it. I think Wine, Women in the New Evangelization were posting about it. And the National Catholic Register and a bunch of other places have really been talking about that work.
Yeah, I've been really blessed by the response, and I wanted to really focus on my Catholic audience. Yeah. And so went to, these different publications and just humbly said, hey, you might not know who I am, probably don't, but I have this new music and it'd be really awesome if you talked about it. And a lot of them said no, but I've gotten some really beautiful responses and blessed by, different publications and podcasts like yours that have said, come on and promote this. And that's quite a gift. Yeah,
well, it's deserving. I mean, it really is. It's a beautiful work of art, and I love listening to it. So, but I know there was a journey, like everybody. Everybody's got a story. Everybody's had a life that led to that album and really everything you've done in your career. So, before we get into the music, and I know you're going to play The Way of Love for us, I'm super excited for that, and y'all should be too, because it's going to be awesome. But I want to get into just a little bit about where did all this come from? Like, how did you start as a musician? When did you start? Were you always, a part of the Catholic faith? Just how you grew up and a little bit of your story.
Yeah, I grew up in a really awesome Catholic family. My parents are really Catholic and just true lovers of Jesus, which has been a great gift. And I went to Mass, actually daily Mass growing up, and I associated Mass and like anything with God as what I have to do. But I was super into performing and I was really into music. But when I was about 15, I read John Paul II's Letter to Artists, where he talks about beauty as a call to transcendence and that it stirs in us a hidden nostalgia for God. Mm-hmm. And for the first time, I realized like, okay, this beauty, this art that I'm so obsessed with is actually just an arrow to the divine artist. And so I was able to finally sort of integrate my love for music and started falling in love with Jesus through beauty. So yeah, and just kind of, I always wanted to perform. I love being the center of attention. That's my struggle. We'll talk about that later. Yeah. And so it was very easy for me, and I've been doing, like, professionally, I got signed when I was 15, so been doing it for a long time.
Yeah. And so you came from a big family too, right? Like you had a bunch of brothers and sisters, correct?
Yeah, I have 9 siblings. They're my best friends, super close to all of them. And we have traveled the world together. We are really close, and most of them actually live in Virginia, where I live right now. And yeah, they've been helpers and good companions with me in my Catholic faith and just in life.
Yeah. I figured some of where you were talking about wanting to be the center of attention, that might come from being in a family with 9 other children that are all looking for attention too. So, we all have our things, but yeah, having a big family and being so Catholic, I can see how that's influenced your music. But at first, you started out just playing folk and indie and a lot of things like that. Obviously we read that, you opened for the Backstreet Boys and the Wallflowers. They're not usually having opening acts that are singing, Christian music. So obviously you had some other music in your career. What was that like, opening for those bands? And what was kind of that first part of your career like as you started playing, the type of music that really, what you started out with must have been what you really loved and what just spoke to you. So, talk about that a little bit. I want to hear a bit about your beginnings there.
Yes, and you explained that really well. Like, what I loved is what I was writing about. And although I've always loved my Catholic faith, I was pretty consumed with, boys and my friendships, just like the fact of being in my early 20s. And so I called my music Holy Leisure, which basically meant that Christians could go to a music club, a theater, and like not have like bad lyrics or anything, have like positive music, but I didn't necessarily sing like Catholic songs. You could find little hints of it. And really that's where I was at the time. I was practicing my faith, but for some reason I felt like I just had to sing about like a breakup. Like I just had to. And God is patient. And that's what I did for a lot of my 20s. And it was really fun. And I never like wandered off and did like a prodigal son like vibe thing in a big way. I always had good Christian bandmates with me. My record label has a lot of Christians in them. So it never was like a big problem, but it was a little listless and felt a little pointless. Because when I think about it, like, if all the things that I wanted to come true in my life came true, like if my goal to be whatever, some big star happened, like would I actually be happy? And I started realizing that even if that happened, I wouldn't be. So that's when I started thinking about Catholic music, honestly. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you did, and so many others are too. It's like I said, I've listened to a lot of your music, and there are some songs like 6'2" is about a boy, and the boy I think that you were looking to, if I remember correctly, it was a boy that you were dreaming in the song about meeting and possibly marrying. I don't know how tall John is. He looks about 6'2", but
he's 6'4".
Oh, okay. So you went a little higher. There you go.
But and that song, gosh, that song was such a, like, I wrote it joking because I thought this would be funny, and like God was like, well, if you're gonna write the song, I'm gonna do stuff with it. So that actually, it's like if anyone knows who I am, it's because of that. There's very few people that do, but when they do, I actually had this girl so this is the first time I've ever been recognized in my life. I was at CVS the other day, and I looked terrible, and this girl came up to me and said, are you the girl that wrote 6'2"? And I thought, like, this is like my siblings are doing like a prank on me.
So where's the camera?
Yeah. I was like, nobody knows who I am. But she actually did. It was really random. She's like, I heard your song on Dancing with the Stars 10 years ago. She's like, did you ever find 6'2"? No, I didn't.
So I found 6'4". It's 2 inches better. It's like 2 inches taller, 2 inches better. So,
but anyway, the songs that I was writing, were funny or maybe, and 6'2" is a prayer. So it still was like like God-y, but not like to God necessarily.
Well, it's, like I said, you had other ones too. You're Not Alone was a #1 Christian song. What was that like? as you're sitting there, and of course, like anybody else, when you do something, especially in entertainment, there are hopes, there's dreams, there's things you're looking for. You've said you wanted to be known and things like that, and have a successful career. I mean, you don't get into things like this and not want to be successful at it. So what was it like when somebody called you and said, you have the number one Christian song? Like, what was that like?
Yeah, that was so special. It really is. And I'm sure you experience this all the time. The balance of finding joy and like being thankful to God if what you're working on is doing well.
Yeah.
But then also being like, I give everything to you. If like nothing works out, like it's okay. Like I just need to be faithful. But You're Not Alone was a song that I wrote for a friend who was going through a really hard time. And I didn't know what to say to him. And I remember thinking, well, the only thing I can do is just be there for him. And so to have that song be spread around the country was really special because I know that so many of us feel really lonely at times. And so that was cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know, right now we have an epidemic of loneliness in the country, isolation. A lot of it had to do with COVID and just, people never getting over that and kind of staying back and away from each other. And, one thing that really is comforting to me is music. It just seems like there's some songs, and I did a podcast 2 weeks ago on one by Zach Bryan that really, spoke to me in moments of despair, desolation. It happens to all of us, whether you're, a guy on a screen or a woman singing or, a guy working a job in a warehouse somewhere. We all, struggle with the same emotions and deal with the same things. And what I love about music, in particular yours too, is you're very open in your music and in your songs. You can tell, like, she's not writing this just about other people. It's coming from her own introspection. And that's what I think is beautiful about it is, what's made this ministry, I think, catchy with people is the fact that we're not speaking from a place of a soapbox and saying like, okay, we figured it out and now you need to too. I'm as big of a mess as anybody else out there. And so I love that about your music is what I've listened to. It's just, you could tell. And I've actually paused and looked at the lyrics and read through them a couple times and gone, man, it seems like she was dealing with this or maybe that. And music was an outlet to be able to kind of maybe find healing or to get it out in the open, and to maybe some self-therapy, if you will.
For sure. I can't help but be honest and like awkwardly honest sometimes. I'm the person that gets in the car after a party and thinks, why did I share that much with everybody? But then it's like they'll know it anyway because I'm going to sing about it. So what can you do? But yeah, I really like to just be honest and talk about honesty. My greatest fear about releasing this Catholic album is that I just do not feel good enough to talk about Jesus and the saints. Yeah. And the patroness of this album is Saint Therese. And the reason why I decided to talk about Therese was because her whole emphasis is on God's merciful love for us. Yeah. And she really is a saint for sinners. And she talks about this. She loved Jesus, the I thirst. She had devotion to him and his thirst. She talks about the woman at Samaria. And I remember thinking, okay, Therese, you're Therese. You've like apparently never committed a mortal sin. Then there's the woman at Samaria who you talked about a couple weeks ago. And like, those are like really different women. But Jesus desires like their love. Like he thirsts for them. He says, give me a drink. Like Therese is like thinking about this. And I thought, well, I'm not Therese. Maybe I'm not the woman at Samaria, but I'm kind of like in the middle somewhere. Yeah. Jesus, like, do you thirst for my love and for my gifts? And I felt like the peace that he did, so that even in my brokenness and the fact that like, I just like am like, I love that you always say that. And it's been really helpful for me, getting into the Catholic world, because like I don't want anyone to think that like I've got it all figured out. Yeah. I really don't. But hopefully that through this music that they see that, because you can kind of tell, I think, that I'm kind of on my first steps on the way of love. Yeah, but I'm telling you what, you've done a fantastic job with it. And that's the thing is the devil is like that. He gets into our head and he tells you, oh, you have no business doing this. Like, keep playing the other music. You're making a living. You're supporting yourself. You're enjoying the music. Don't go somewhere where, you're not Scott Hahn or you're not this, or maybe you're not in your terms, probably Matt Maher or somebody like that, a big singer that's been singing Christian music forever, for many years. And I know I feel that way sometimes too. Like I'll say,
I'm going to speak at something. And I'm like, well, you're not, this person or that person, or you're not as eloquent as this person, or you don't have such theological knowledge or whatever. But it's the way I try to look at it, and I don't know if you feel the same way, but I start to realize that's just the devil trying to keep me from doing something that he knows is going to be helpful in what the Lord wants me to do. And in all of it, it's the Lord that gives us the gifts. It's the Lord that we were just at Mass together, and the reading today was saying, like, don't worry about what you're to say, or don't prepare ahead of time, because the Lord's going to give you the words. And that requires a great trust in the Lord, and the fact that, having a great relationship with him, which you obviously do, and you can see in your music. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's I think, especially with this album, I have really had a lot of those thoughts, like almost constantly. But this album is really promoting Theresian philosophy. Like, so St. Therese's idea of the little way and the way of love. So it's not even, for me, it's kind of healing to be like, these are not even my thoughts. I'm like depending on her.
Sure.
And so, of course, the devil hates this because she is a doctor of the church. Sure. She has done so much good for the world. So I'm like, okay, I'm giving this all to her, and that's all that I can do. Yeah. And that is like when I have my strong moments, that's how I feel.
Sure.
In my weak moments, you're right. I'm like, I should just go back to pop music. I can't do this, but God's always, he's so patient with me.
Right. And that's what, it's a verse we talk about here a lot is 2 Corinthians 12:9, where, Paul is lamenting over the thorn in his side, and God says, he's asking him to remove it. And God says, no, my grace is sufficient for you, which he fills up all whatever we see as something as deficient or something that's not right. I mean, we were joking earlier about how we look on camera, and at the end of the day, nobody's probably even paying attention to that. They're just listening to what we're saying, but God fills all those things. And it just, it must have taken a lot of courage, though, to move from one genre to the next and to be able to do it as beautifully as you've done. One of my favorite things in The Way of Love, and that's the name of the album for those out there. If you haven't heard it yet, you can download it on all your podcast, or your not podcast, but your music downloading platforms, your Apple Music, all those things out there, Spotify, everything else. You've also got YouTube stuff out there with videos, correct?
Yep.
So you can find it all there, and it's 5 or 6 songs on there. Is that correct?
It's 5 songs.
5, yeah. See, I should have known that. I've listened to it a bunch of times. I gave you an extra one, so people are gonna be like, "Where's the 6th song?" I don't know.
The secret song.
Yeah, that's
I'm gonna
right.
write it.
That's right. Yeah. But it's beautiful, and The Way of Love is just something that one particular song. It's all great music, all of it on the album. But the first verse says this: "These roads, these feet have seen. Miles and miles of wandering, searching for glory and praise for the sound of my name, hoping that would stop the ache." And I've wanted to ask you about that verse since the first time I heard it, because I heard it and I was like, wait a minute, that is so honest, and it seems like she's really trying to lead the way for other people to be vulnerable and to be open about the things that are constant struggles. Sometimes we try to bury those things, but it's like, how do we bring these things to the light and let the Lord do what he wants with them?
Yeah. So as a performer, and I remember I was 7 years old when I first tasted this like star, like I need to do this kind of thing. I was 7 and I was doing a play, and everyone had a script, and I threw my script down right before without telling anyone, and thought, I'm going to ad-lib my part. And in my 7-year-old mind, I thought, wow, I really stole the show. Yeah. I probably was terrible, but in my mind, I thought that, and I felt that center of attentionness. And even though there were a lot of good reasons why I was doing music, I love music, I love to sing, I feel like God has called me to this, there was always that, okay, more streams, more YouTube, views, bigger audiences, more likes on Instagram. Like that was what you did. And because I started so young, that's what I thought. Like that's the goal. I need to be as big of a star as possible. And really, what's funny, if that really was my goal, I failed miserably. And I don't say that to be self-deprecating. That's just the reality.
Sure.
That I'm very blessed to be able to do this job full time. And so that's a gift. But most everyone in the whole entire world has no idea who I am. And so what is so cool about Therese, and this is why what the verse is talking about, is that her little way, which is this idea that we can do everything for love, towards love, even the littlest things, is that she allowed me to be okay with littleness.
Yeah.
And as a performer, that is so counterintuitive.
Sure.
But just to say, like, this little show, like this little opportunity, even when you get to do big shows like this podcast, but really, like, she celebrated the little, and that is what I'm talking about. Like, I thought as much affirmation as possible, because if everybody told me that I was great, then I must be.
Sure.
And to be able to say, like, I don't need to hear that only from my father, and it's okay to be little has been, it's like being freed from prison.
Yeah. And it's something we all suffer with. I mean, even to this day, sometimes and I've said this on the show before, and sometimes you're like, man, why do you say that stuff? You make yourself sound bad. But if I'm going to be honest about the times I've been successful in my faith and living a certain way, I mean, I'm certainly going to be honest about the times I haven't been. And there are times when you see this and you see people having certain types of success, or it just seems like, oh, it's so easy for them, but it's really not. Like, everybody's struggling. Everybody's, doing their thing, and we're not meant to compare. I mean, there's a reason the word sin's in comparison, right? I mean, it's just not something the Lord wants us to spend our time on. And what I've found each and every time is, if I can go back, like you're saying, to the fact that, what is God asking of me? And how can I just do that today and do it well? And not worry about, like, well, what if this podcast isn't listened to 5,000 times this week? Well, who cares? Mm-hmm. Maybe it was listened to 20 times by 20 people that need to hear it. Mm-hmm. Or maybe your songs were listened to by people in a moment of struggle that was able to bring them out of it, right? That's what it's about. And so much of our lives, we struggle with that, like, because we feel like, if I just accomplish this, if I just have this, if this particular person tells me these words of affirmation, then I've finally made it, I feel good. But what we often find with all that is, we get that sometimes, and we're still feeling empty. And to your point, the only thing that can fill that is God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, performer or not, right? We all want, like, a bigger salary, a bigger house, more friends, bigger community. We kind of like as big as possible.
Sure.
America, bigger portions,
Yeah, that's right.
And
to our detriment a lot. Yeah.
So we're all struggling with that, and kind of just like becoming little to God, and that freedom to just know that, like, to be faithful in the littlest thing is the key. Yeah. And it's so hard to do in practice. I love preaching it.
Yeah, that's
I'm
right.
really good at that.
Yeah, it's easy to talk about. It's not so easy to do it.
Yeah.
But that's another good thing too, is at the end of the day, when you get used to, like, all right, Lord, what do you want from me today? And that's something I try to pray every morning is, what do you want from me today? And I'm going to try to do it to the best of my ability, and I'm probably going to fail. So please perfect it for me, right? Like, take whatever little offering I have and do whatever you can with it. And with that becomes a lot of peace, right? You don't feel the pressure that so many other people do when you're practicing that well. It's like, at the end of the day, I did the best I could. I put this out there. Lord, you asked me to write a song, or to do an album in your case, and put together an album, which is, I'm sure, a serious amount of work. And you put it in, and now he's blessing people with it, right? I mean, I know I've been blessed by it. I know my children, my wife, and countless other people, as I've seen on Facebook, have too. So, at the end of the day, I think what you're promoting to people is really something that is hard for a lot of people to learn.
Well, thank you. Yeah. We all are called, what I'm learning. It's just like, and wherever we are, on this way of love is what is the title track. And because I have lived my life with love as, like, one of the options, and then the others are like honor, glory, like the way of, like, me feeling great about myself. And I'm realizing, like, those are all dead ends. Yeah. And it doesn't mean that I don't still go down those roads very often, but this is the idea that, like, we were created for love, and everything we should do is for love, towards love. And that's kind of the message I'm more trying to promote to myself. I keep saying it, over and over again, but that's been a great gift, and it's really cool to see, like, just even one person saying, like, that this has helped me, because music helps me a lot. Yeah, it really does, and it seems like you are similar.
Sure, yeah.
Like, music is a big part of your life, and when I'm really going through something, it can be a game changer. So that's what I hope, that my music in a small way can just, like, help someone along whatever they're going through.
Yeah. So have you heard things? I mean, have people emailed in or written? I mean, I'm sure people have commented on the work.
They've been very, really love sweet responses. I think my favorite response was not from anyone that I didn't know, but my dad was in the studio and I was singing Take Lord Receive, I pretend that I co-wrote a song with St. Ignatius, because all I did was just take his prayer and wrote words to it, wrote music to it. Mm-hmm. And just when he heard it, just his heart soared, and I could see, I've like never seen my dad cry, but I saw him tear up. Because he was just so happy that he heard his daughter, who he's been teaching about the faith for so long, sing a song about total surrender to God's mercy. And that was really, really special. I got like a kind of like high five from the CFRs, which I'm like a super fan of. And
they're awesome.
I love, you're friends with Father Malachi. I'm good friends with Father Malachi, and then Father Mark Mary and I are really good friends. And, he said to me, after a song that I sang, he's like, I'm just proud of like where you've come from and like where you're going. Yeah. And just like that encouragement meant so much. Just from friends and family has been the best response, because I'm like, okay, guys, I'm doing all right.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. Honestly, you mentioned Father Malachi. He was telling me, I think the first time he ever mentioned you to me was when I was on a healing retreat with him for the JP2 Healing Center. And I think you called him when we were in the car. And he was like, man, this is Marie Miller. She does a lot of stuff with us as friars. She plays a lot of the things we do. And she's so amazing. And you got to meet her. She's living in Memphis now. And I'm so glad he did that, because he was right about all of it. I mean, you have been someone amazing to be around. And just like I said, the music that you're putting out there is changing lives. It's really helping a lot of people. And so we talked about that first verse of The Way of Love and the second verse, and I think this is what you alluded to a little bit, because the first part of the song is you kind of pondering and getting out your own thoughts and emotions, and then it's like, all right, now it's about Jesus. And the second part of the song is all about him and how sweet the way of love is, and love that will lead the way back home, and him building, showing you this road. But that second verse, you're sort of coming out of those thoughts when you say the places I've been to know, to find out who I am, searching for more affirmation to placate my shame, thinking that would make things change. But then you pointed me down a different road, and you could see right there in the song where, as he does in all of our lives, he comes in and he starts to say there's a different way. And obviously the way of love is what he was pointing you to.
Yeah. And this inspiration is from a quote from Therese. She says, how sweet is the way of love, one can fall. One may not always be faithful, but love can turn profit from all things. So basically, like, love profits. Like, so even our sins, that God can make profit out of it, which to me was just a radical idea.
Sure, yeah.
But he's God, and that he has like seen my brokenness, he's seen my sin and my shame, and that he has brought me closer to him through that. And that was, the inspiration, like, to me. And that's why I say this all the time, but like, the way of love is a way for sinners, and I can only go the way for sinners, because this idea that, like, that he could take my sin and like make it a stepping stone towards him has been how I can keep going. Because I don't know about you, but it's like, I'm not Saint Therese. So I need a way for sinners, and that's what the way of love is about. It's like for everyone, and no matter where you are, you don't have to be this perfect Catholic all the time. Like, you can, like, that's like my invitation, and that's what I hope people listen to, that you don't have to be like all, like, super holy, got it all together to listen to this, but rather wherever you are, this could encourage you along that way.
No, and that's what I love about it. It's the same approach that we try to do in this ministry. It's just like, look, if Jesus was here in the world today, he would be in the worst parts of the cities with the people that are the most downtrodden, the people that have lost the most hope. And that's what we need as a church today. Is to reach out to those that have fallen away, those who don't know Jesus. And there's so many people today. I mean, like we said, I hate to bring up depressing things, but the suicide rate in the country is higher than it's ever been. Loneliness, isolation, and we need voices like yours, speakers, all those things, preachers, priests, but everyday lay people too that are out there preaching the gospel. And that's what you're doing through your music. You're not just writing a song and going, okay, this is another album to put out. You have a heart to reach the hearts of other people, and that's what makes really what you do beautiful. And again, like, I love anything where somebody's just like, I'm not perfect, and here's why, and you just happen to put it to music versus me over here pontificating about it 35 minutes a week on a podcast. But I love that. And I think that's why people are going to be drawn to your music more and more as they come to know who you are. And as you grow in popularity out there in Catholic circles, I just know the Lord's going to continue to use you for wonderful things and for music that allow people to just be honest with themselves. Because at the end of the day, I think that's what we all want. Like, I know a lot of times I'm lying to myself, and I'm tired of lying to myself. I just want to be honest about where I am, because that's when change can actually happen, right? Like that second verse you said there, placate my shame. I've got shame about something in my life that I know is not right, but you came in, and now I'm on this different path. And that's a beautiful journey that the Lord wants to do in every one of our lives.
Right. Yeah, I know we try to, especially with shame, I'm really good at distracting myself. And we can use different things. It could be like television, it could be alcohol, it can be just like going out with friends, like whatever it is, so that I don't have to be inside my own head and think about just like my life, that, I've made mistakes. Sure. I've hurt people, and it's easier just to kind of be like, no, I'm not going to think about this. And when Jesus is like, I want to meet you in your shame. He's like, I want to be there. Like, I was there when you were making that mistake, and I never left you, and I'm not leaving you now. And that's been like, that's the greatest gift. And that's like what I want people to know. And I am doing a lot more Catholic stuff now. And so it can seem, and you've probably experienced this, that like, oh, we're doing Catholic things, so it's all like clean and bright and like pretty, especially women's conferences, right? Yeah. It's just like tea and, and
flowers and pink stuff. Yeah, exactly. Probably going to get in trouble for saying that. But anyway, go ahead. And so you kind of walk into that, but a lot of times it gets really fast. People are just going through so much. And so, for music to be any way part of that, especially besides doing my original music that we've been talking about, I will lead music for adoration. And I just love that time where people can just be with Jesus, and hopefully the music helps them like just enter in, and just to look at him and him to look at them, and to have healing there. Yeah, it is. I've been lucky to be a part of the JP2 Healing Center and done several events where, Danielle and some other folks have been there that, played music for them. And it's just amazing when somebody's through talking, or especially Bob or Sister Miriam, I mean, you might as well bring Kleenex whenever either one of those two open their mouth. But like, just to see when the music comes on, it's just this release of people that it's comforting, but it's also allowing them to, it's like it's winding its way into their emotions. And oftentimes you mentioned adoration. I mean, we had adoration there tonight for our men's group, and everybody's got devotionals or whatever. I pulled out earbuds and I started listening to some of your music. I started listening to some other things that just make me feel closer to God, because sometimes when I go in there, I'm like, okay, I got to go to the grocery store after this. I've got this, I got this, I got this. And I completely ignore the fact that the Lord is present there. I'm physically doing it, but I'm not mentally. But with music, a lot of times I pop my earbuds in and listen to your music and others. And it just leads me into this, like this just meeting place with the Lord that's very beautiful.
Well, going back to what changed my life, John Paul II, a beauty is a call to transcendence. It stirs in us that hidden nostalgia for God. So music is that, art is that it calls us to transcendence. And we live in such an, all around us is the material, the earthly, the temporal. It's really hard to focus on the spiritual. Because all we see all around us is what it is. And I know especially, men and women with families, it's like you really do have to focus on, like, you got to make sure people have material goods, Like,
sure.
You can't, I'm going to go pray, like my kids aren't going to have anything to eat.
Yeah, like, you guys going to be good? We're fine. I'm going on a retreat for 5 years. I'll be back.
Exactly, right? There's material things that need to happen. But I find that it's so important to, like, whatever avenue, like, calls you to transcendence, like, sounds like for you, music is one. And, I mean, for me, it's like our Lord, and for all of us, our Lord in the Eucharist, right? It's like all of eternity exists in time, like waiting for us. And so like that's all transcendence there. Yeah. And like we have to get away. Carlo Acutis, who's going to become a saint, which is so
was just
cool.
at his body a few weeks ago. In Italy on the pilgrimage. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, he's amazing. So I grew up with pretty much like all guy friends. I was a huge tomboy. And so I had 3 best friends that were guys. They're still guys. Sorry.
Yeah. It's like, hopefully that hasn't changed, but anyway.
And blessed. So Carlo would be 2 years younger than me. And so I kind of like think of him as just like one of my guy friends.
Sure.
So I talk to him like real, like, I'm like, okay. And, but Carl Acutis said that, the infinite is my homeland.
Yeah.
Right. And so he had this idea that like, yeah, he loved life too. And, but he just knew that home was the infinite.
Yeah.
And I think that is the beautiful thing about music, is that it can kind of open that door to the infinite.
Definitely can. He said something I mentioned when we were over there too. I was kind of researching just to, if you're leading a pilgrimage, you should probably know who you're talking about. So I looked into a little bit, and he had a quote that said, "We're all born originals, but many of us die as photocopies." And that really stuck with me too. He's an amazing person. And I got the announcement while we were standing there outside of the church where he's buried, that he was going to be canonized a year later. So it was a really neat time. But it's so cool to hear that he's a big part of your life too.
Oh yeah, he really is. And I think that people, what I've read about it, I think that they emphasize his technology part so much, which is great. But what I love about him is that he like played soccer, and he was really like good to like other classmates, especially that were bullied.
Yeah.
He just like loved the Eucharist so much at an early age. So that's what I like about him. Also, like my favorite picture on earth is him as Spider-Man.
Oh yeah,
for Halloween. Yeah.
Well, he's like buried in a Nike tracksuit, or I mean, he's not buried,
right.
but he's there I guess Italy's version of a Nike tracksuit. I don't know.
Yeah, he looks like a Gen Z kid.
He
now.
does.
Yeah.
My kids really connected with him over there, and some of the other teenage, our family had some teenage boys over there, and they did too. But, we talked a little bit about the song, The Way of Love, but you've got a whole entire album to go along with it. So why don't we talk a little bit about some of the other songs on there? I know you did one with several other female singers. Some of them, like Sarah Kroger's one of them. I believe there's a few more.
Yeah, exactly. So Woman, we were talking about the woman at Samaria.
Yeah.
I was thinking about her because I love her. She's my favorite story in Scripture. And I came to Nashville, which I do often. I used to live there. And Sarah Kroger and Sarah Hart and I wrote 3 different stories in Scripture where Jesus encounters women. And so the Samaritan woman, Mary Magdalene at the resurrection, and then the woman caught in the act of adultery. And just kind of his unique interaction with each of them, but just like the same like beautiful love that he has for us. And so that's really special to sing.
Sure.
I'm really excited about, and I know that Eucharistic Congress has been all the rage.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So but Sweet Company is a song that I wrote, which is inspired by Tolkien's letter to his son. He says, "Out of the darkness of my life, so much frustrated, like I bring before you the one thing to love on earth, the Eucharist, and there you'll find honor, glory, and fidelity." I'm paraphrasing, but this idea that like everything I'm searching for is contained in this Jesus that's disguised as bread. And so Sweet Company is kind of about my love for adoration, and just like wherever I am and whatever I'm going through, the same company he's always wanting to accompany me.
Sure.
And that red candle, I don't know if you've experienced this, where you're just like anywhere in the world and you walk in and you see that red candle, you're like, yes, there you are.
Sure. Yeah.
So cool. And so that's a really fun song for me to sing, especially right now as we're getting ready and participating in the Congress.
Yeah, they should have had you come sing it, is my opinion. They should have had you come be there.
You're a good friend.
But yeah, I mean, so the album's packed with lots of good music. You mentioned Tolkien. One of the things that I read about you too is that which said was unlike a lot of folks, you actually go back to some of these prolific authors and things like that for inspiration. There were several that an article I was reading about you named of some of your favorite authors, and that you're constantly going back and searching for those things as a point of reference or as a point of inspiration, and then building music around those ideas or those thoughts. And it's really neat. I mean, that's when I build podcasts, a lot of times I'll have some kind of, usually it's when I've messed up my life in one way or another or done something stupid, and then I'll go looking and like, what did the saints say about that? And then I'll find like a Fulton Sheen quote or John Paul II or whoever, and I'll go, man, that really has to do with what I'm feeling or thinking, and then something comes out of that. But it was really neat to see that you're going back and diving into these authors and finding inspiration from that.
Yeah, there's such a freedom in this album because, like I was saying before, I had 3 records before, and they are about like my life and my stories, and that's great. And I really loved doing that, and it's a gift to like share my story with so many people. But this was taking like the treasures from the church. So, mainly Saint Therese, but also great writers like Tolkien and C.S. Lewis. Our Lady. I have a song called Among These Rocks, which was taken from a T.S. Eliot poem where he talks about a lady that guides, and I interpreted that as Our Lady.
Sure.
And this idea that whatever cross like we're going through, that she's at the foot of it. That she has never left us at any cross, just in the way that she would never leave her son. She'd never leave us. And so that song is special to me. There's been a lot of suffering in my family. Actually, my sister's going through chemo. She's 29. She has lymphoma. Gosh. So, you write a song and I wrote it kind of for friends that were going through hard times. And it's so easy to write it when they're going through it. You're like, yeah, Our Lady will take care of you. You'll be fine.
Yeah. All the prayer hands that everybody puts up. Yeah. It's like,
exactly.
Yeah.
And then when you find out, right, like this beautiful 29-year-old girl that has been your best friend your whole life, or her whole life, is going to be going through this for 6 months and hopefully never again. And you're in the middle of it. There's a line where I say, will the veiled sister pray for the children at the gate who will not go away but cannot pray? Because I don't know if you've experienced this, but when you first sometimes hear news like this, I know in the movies they always like fall down on their knees and start praying.
Sure, yeah.
I'm not that good of a person.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to pray in times of great suffering, and we've my family's actually gone through like several seasons of like grief, and in those times, like, it takes a lot. And what I love is that Jesus like knew that. Like, he's not like, whoa, really? Is it hard to pray during suffering?
Yeah, sure. Like, he knew it more than any of us ever will.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, he's not shocked by that or mad at us. But he like truly does bring his mother, on the cross. He's like, okay, I know they're going to go through it, and so I'm going to give you my mother. And so that's what the song is about, that she's with us when we can't pray.
Wow, that's beautiful. I mean, I've listened to it, but I didn't know that was the inspiration behind you. I mean, I'm behind it. It's a beautiful song. I mean, all of them are. I'm telling you folks out there, if you have not listened to this album yet, you need to download it. It's really beautiful. And I know there's a lot of men that listen to this and it's like, well, am I going to listen to a lady sing? She's probably singing the ladies. No, get over yourself, because I listen to it all the time too. If I can, you can too. It's beautiful music that speaks to everybody, right? Just the way that a lot of women listen to the show, when you're talking about things that we all deal with. It doesn't matter what gender you're speaking to, because it's all things of the heart, right? It's all things, human things. And so, guys, you need to download it. And if you haven't, you need to have your wives download it, because it's amazing. And I'm telling you, you'll be blessed by the music. And you're going to play one of the songs for us here today, the title song, right?
I am. I'm so excited.
Yeah. All so right. Do you want to start getting your stuff together? And so folks, while she's doing that, I'm going to leave the camera. I'm going to put the camera back on myself. She's getting her mandolin, which is awesome too, because I grew up loving songs like Listen to the Mandolin Rain. So I love the mandolin. So she's going to get ready for that. Marie's going to get ready for that while I just want to say again that the album is called The Way of Love. It's fresh out a few weeks ago. Now it's on every sound and music platform out there. So Spotify, Apple Music, Google Play, all those things that are out there, you can find it there. You can also find it on YouTube. It is a wonderful, wonderful album. And so Marie is just doing us the honor of playing this today. So I'm going to send it back to you and let you play this.
The road these feet have seen, miles and miles of wandering, searching for glory and praise, for the sound of my name, hoping that would stop the ache. The places I have been, to know, to find out who I am, searching for more affirmation to placate my shame, thinking that would make things change. turning back. Never turning back.
Thank you so much. What a gift it is to hear you play live and to sing that. I've watched the videos. I've obviously listened to the songs a lot, but to have you in here in the studio and do that, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. That was fun. That's the first time I think I've performed that in a really long time.
Really?
So you're getting I was just like, all right. I'm thinking, oh, he has the lyrics in front of him.
Yeah.
Oh, no. But yeah, that was fun.
It was perfect. I wasn't looking at the lyrics. I was listening. I was just like, maybe she'll play the whole album. Like, who knows? But thank you, obviously, for your generosity in doing that, too. So a couple other things I wanted to talk about before we end over here. So you don't only just play music, you also speak and you do things like, I know you've had events where you'll play music, but you'll also, give talks and things like that. So talk a little bit about that and that part of what you do for the Lord.
Yeah, right now, my main thing, which I'm so excited about, is a musical presentation called The Way of Love.
Yeah.
And it is a combination of my songs and stories with St. Teresa's life and teachings. And I have been performing that at women's conferences and parishes. And I'm going to be doing that actually at Catholic Information Center on July 19th. And for those who don't live in Washington, D.C., it will be live streamed, and if you miss it, it will be on the Catholic Information Center website. So excited about that, and that's mainly what I do. But I also will do talks with whatever the retreat is asking for as well. And I always put in music. That's kind of what I do. There's always music and speaking.
Well, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, you're good at it, so you might as well do it, right? Yeah. So how do people get in touch with you for anything, whether they want you to come and perform musically, or if they want you to speak, or do some of the things you just mentioned?
Yeah, so booking at mariemillermusic.com, and if you'll find that if you go on my website, mariemillermusic.com. There's me as a musician, Marie Miller. There's also a lady that makes quilts named Marie Miller.
Okay.
I'm the musician one. Yeah,
sure.
So on the internet there. And and then if you want to follow me on Instagram, Marie Miller Sing.
Okay.
I'm not that good at Instagram, but you'll know.
Me neither.
Yeah. You'll know when I'm coming to your area, or, if I do a cool thing like this and on a podcast. But yeah, so that's my Instagram, and I'm on Facebook and all that stuff.
Awesome. Well, I know you and I have talked a little bit about doing something together, maybe even around Advent. So I hope we can get that worked out, and it will be here locally in Memphis, but it'd be a real gift to do any of that stuff with you. And Marie, I just thank you, first of all, for your friendship. There's been a lot of times where you've shared with me episodes we've done that have meant something to you, and I can't tell you what that means, because I guess what it means as someone who performs or is involved in things like this. You always you hope what you do impacts or matters somebody. So that's really, thank you for the affirmation, and thank you for the friendship, and for the time to come on here and be with us. Folks, again, just please go and download this album. Check out everything Marie does. She's a fantastic musician. She's a fantastic disciple of our Lord, and she's a great all-around person. So please go and patronize her music. Share it with everybody out there. Again, you can find that on any music platform. Any final words here you want to give as we go?
Yeah, just thank you so much for listening, everyone that's listening, and thank you so much for having me on the podcast. It really means a lot, and I just hope that, I'm praying for you, and I'm going to be praying for anyone who hears this. So God bless you all.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Well, thanks for being with us.